In this video, we're going through 30 different mistakes that you might make with the DJI MINI 3. So if you're a first-time flyer or you've flown drones before, there's a ton of information packed into this video, and I'm not doing this alone. I've got my buddy Jake, came up to Alaska to hang out and fly drones, and we're gonna go through a bunch of different mistakes that you're gonna wanna avoid when you're out flying. All right, let's get into it. So the first one, we're gonna talk about getting better looking footage, and that is not filming jerky movements. So when you're up flying and you wanna film videos with your drone, well, you wanna make sure that you're getting smooth footage. And what that means is planning out your shots and making smooth motions with the drone. So not having it jerk really fast to the left or the right or flipping the gimbal up, because those kind of motions just aren't gonna look good when you're editing your videos together. You wanna have smooth footage. And so really try to focus on learning how to use your drone and learning how to use the thumbsticks to be able to move your drone in different ways in the sky so you can get these moves that have a much more cinematic quality rather than being jerky and amateurish.
Now, if you're a brand new drone pilot, it's fine to use auto exposure as you're learning to fly your drone, but as soon as you can, it's really important to learn to use your camera settings properly, setting your shutter speed and your ISO where they need to be for the exposure you want. And a big one is especially important to make sure your white balance is not set on auto white balance, because you'll see the color shift in your image as you go from certain situations to other situations. One example would be when the sun is out and then all of a sudden it goes behind some clouds. That can cause your drone to do some really strange things, both with the exposure and with the white balance. So as soon as you can, learn to set your camera settings so that they're set and locked in at what you want them to be.
So one mistake that new pilots will make is trying to shoot in heavy wind. Now, the Mini 3 can handle some pretty heavy wind. I've taken it out in some pretty extreme conditions and it handled just fine. But the issue is when you're trying to get good looking footage, the heavy wind pushes the drone around. And how the drone works is it uses GPS coordinates to put itself on the earth. And so as the wind pushes your drone left or right, well, it's constantly trying to reorient itself back to that point. And so when you have heavy wind and you have a tiny drone like the Mini 3, well, your footage is gonna look bouncy and jerky. You can see from this footage right here, it's all over the place. It can handle the wind just fine, but it doesn't look that good. So if you absolutely have to shoot in heavy wind, you can get a shot, but just know it's not gonna look that good and you'll wanna fly with less wind.
A mistake a lot of us made as new drone pilots was taking off in dusty environments, and that's really bad for the drone. One, all that dust gets in the motors and causes issues, but it can also cover the camera lens, which then really kind of ruins any footage you might get. So an easy way around this is to get a drone landing mat. It gives you a nice big area to land on and take off from, but as you get more experience, you can also do things like learn to hand launch and hand catch your drone. But that's a little bit advanced, so I wouldn't start with that. I definitely just start with something like a drone mat if you plan to fly from places that have lots of dust or sand, small debris.
So one big mistake is not updating your home point as you're moving. So if you're on something like a boat and you're drifting away from where you took off from, well, your home point is gonna be back at that takeoff location. How the drone works is that wherever you take off, it's gonna set a home point on the earth. And when you move, say you're hiking or you're in a boat or another vehicle, well, when you use the return to home, you're gonna want the drone to come back to you, not to that home point that's way out over there somewhere, especially if you're over the water. So what you can do is go into the menu and there is an update home point feature. Now, this will set a new home point to wherever the drone is or wherever the controller is. And this is something that you can choose when you're in your menu settings. So make sure that if you move away from your initial home point, you reset it in the app before you hit return to home.
A big mistake people make is flying sideways and forgetting that there's no side obstacle avoidance on this drone. So you might be out in a place like this getting epic shots of yourself, but just remember, if you're flying sideways, it's really easy to run into an object.
And to add on to that, one mistake that pilots will make will be flying without any sensors. So if you put it into sport mode, all of your sensors are going to turn off automatically. But you can also turn off your sensors in the other modes as well. And you might want to do this if you're trying to get a shot where you're flying super close to an object, because if you're like right near an object, your sensors might stop you from flying by. So if you're doing like a crazy pass-by shot, which be cautious, especially if you're a new pilot. But if you're doing one of these shots, you'll have to turn off your sensors. And if you forget to turn them back on, well, you might run into something. So Just know the limitations of your drone and know the limitations of your sensors and when they're on and when they're off. Okay, so I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes where I'm at. We're gonna move location. Jake, we gotta go. I'm getting eaten alive.
The next mistake is thinking that the drone is just a toy. They're really not, and they can actually do quite a bit of damage. So especially when you're close to yourself or close to people you're flying with, you gotta be careful because those propellers can do a lot of damage. But it can also do a lot of damage if there happen to be small aircraft or helicopters flying by. It doesn't take much to do a fair amount of damage on an aircraft. And so you really gotta remember that when you're flying a drone, you're not just putting a toy in the air, you're putting something up there that can do damage if it goes badly. And that's just one more reason why you really need to learn to fly your drone well.
The next big mistake is flying out of line of sight. So when you're flying your drone, you want to be able to see it up in the sky. And there's a few reasons. One, if you're here in the US, it's actually illegal to fly out of line of sight. But two, if you're flying so far that you can't see your drone, well, there's a chance that you might hit something. And also, if you're flying too far with a really low battery, there's a good chance that the drone's not going to make it back.
A mistake that I have made more times than I care to admit, and a lot of other people make, is going out without charging your batteries first. A lot of times people will charge the batteries and think that they stay charged, but most drones actually discharge the batteries after a couple of days. And that's because it helps the batteries last longer and make sure that they don't burn themselves out too soon or prematurely. And so anytime before you're going out, like the day before, the night before, or if you have time in the morning before, make sure that your batteries are charged before you leave to go to a place like this. Otherwise, you might get here and realize that all your batteries only have 50% charge and you really can't do as much flying as you're hoping to.
The next big mistake is flying indoors. And this is a mistake because a lot of new pilots will get a drone and they'll be excited, they want to take it off, whether it's dark outside or just bad weather or for some other reason you can't go outside and fly. And then when you fly indoors, well, you're not going to have as much control. I mean, for one thing, your GPS is not going to lock on, and so the drone, it's going to drift. You have to have GPS locked on for the drone to be able to stay in place. And also, you're not going to know how to use the thumbsticks, and you're not going to know how sensitive the controller is. And so if you're flying indoors right away, there's a good chance that you're going to fly it right into something and destroy the drone.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that beginners make, and I definitely made, is not finding a big open space that's obstacle-free to fly your first few flights with the drone. It's really important to go out and find a big open field where there's no obstacles, no power lines, nothing you can run into, and just get comfortable with flying the drone, doing some really slow, really small, and really basic movements.
Another big mistake is not understanding your drone before you take it off and go fly. You'll want to know how the controller works, you'll want to know what everything is on the drone itself, and most importantly, you'll want to know what to do in the app. When you first look at the app screen, there is a ton of information. And so you'll want to understand what all of that means so that when your drone's up in the sky, you'll know what all the numbers are. And you'll also want to know how you change all the settings to be able to fly it and to be able to shoot photos and videos. So if you want to learn more about how to use the DJI Mini 3, well, I have a beginner's guide that goes through everything, controller, drone, and everything in the app. And I'll link to that down below in the description if that's something that you need before you take off and start flying.
Another really big mistake a lot of beginners make is flying too far away and not realizing that the wind is blowing against the drone when it's time to bring it back, and then running out of battery power and the drone never makes it back. So when you take off and when you fly away, it's really important to know which direction the wind is blowing so that if you fly a little way away and you know that you have to come back against a headwind, you give yourself a little bit of extra battery. You got to remember that it's going to take a lot more battery power for that drone to come back if there's a 10 or 15 or 20 mile an hour wind that's trying to blow the drone away from you. You need to give yourself extra battery to be able to make sure you can get all the way back. Otherwise, the drone might end up in a lake or in the forest or somewhere where you can't get it back.
Another mistake that new pilots make is not getting a variety of shots when you're trying to film footage with your drone. So what I've seen pilots do is take the drone up, take it way up in the sky, and just shoot like big landscape shots. And they're kind of boring. You don't see a lot of movement. It's just kind of a drone up in the sky. It's not that interesting. When you want to get better footage with your drone, you want to think variety. You want to think different angles and different perspectives and use the gimbal in different ways. So get low to the ground or get high and look straight down, or do an orbit, and just think how can you combine different movements and how can you use what's in your landscape to change it up and get 5 shots that look completely different versus just 5 big, wide landscape shots with the drone as high as you can possibly go. For the next 15 mistakes, head to this guy's channel. The video is linked right here. We'll see you over there.